Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
One day, my dad, who's been living in the same house for over 4 decades, decided it was time for some much-needed renovations. The old place had seen better days, with peeling paint and weathered wood that had taken quite a beating from the elements over the years. As his only child, I felt it was my duty to help him out, especially since he's not as spry as he used to be. I took a week off work and drove down to my childhood home, ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. The first order of business was to rent a large dumpster for all the debris and junk we'd be clearing out. It wasn't cheap, $650 for a week's rental, but it was necessary to get the job done right. As we started the cleanup process, I got an unexpected message on social media from a neighbor I'd never met before. She lived a couple of houses behind us and had apparently been there almost as long as we had. She was asking if she could throw a couple of old mattresses in our dumpster. Now, I'm generally a pretty friendly guy, and I like to think I'm a good neighbor, so I decided to be accommodating within reason. I sent her a message back explaining that we were planning to use the weekend to finish throwing things away. I offered to let her know on Sunday evening if there was room for her mattresses so she could throw them in before pickup on Tuesday. I also asked about the size of the mattresses. I thought that was a fair response. We'd paid for the dumpster after all, and needed to make sure we had enough room for our own stuff first. I never heard back from her, which I found a bit odd, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Fast forward to Saturday afternoon. I was in the middle of hauling some old furniture to the dumpster when I noticed a woman I didn't recognize approaching with two men, each carrying a single mattress. I asked if I could help them, and the woman replied that they were there to dump the mattresses. I was taken aback. This must be the neighbor who had messaged me, but she was acting as if we'd agreed to this already. I explained apologetically that we were still filling the dumpster and that I didn't know if there would be room for her stuff yet because I wasn't finished with mine. I asked if she had received my message about letting her know on Sunday evening if there was leftover room. She responded that she didn't have any help on Monday and that today was the only day she had help. I could feel my patience wearing thin. It wasn't my fault she hadn't planned this better or bothered to respond to my message. I told her that I understood it was inconvenient, but that wasn't really my problem. I explained that my main concern was having room for my stuff since I had paid $650 for the dumpster. She then claimed she was disabled and didn't have anyone to help her on Monday. Now, I'm not usually one to pull the disability card, but her attempt to guilt-trip me struck a nerve. I informed her that I was also disabled and questioned what that had to do with whether or not there was room for her stuff. She finally left, grumbling under her breath. If she had just messaged me back and explained her situation, I would have been more than happy to have the workers I'd hired help her out on Monday. But her entitled attitude and assumption that she could just show up and use our dumpster without proper communication left a sour taste in my mouth. As the weekend progressed, I found myself becoming more and more irritated by the incident. By Sunday evening, we had managed to clear out most of our junk, and there was actually some space left in the dumpster. Under normal circumstances, I would have reached out to let her know she could bring her mattresses over. But her behavior had made me reconsider my initial offer of neighborly kindness. Monday morning rolled around, and I was surprised to see the same woman marching up our driveway. This time alone and empty-handed. She pointed out that there was space in the dumpster now and said that she was there to throw away her mattresses. I apologized and explained that after her behavior on Saturday, I had decided not to allow her to use our dumpster. She protested, reminding me of what I had said earlier. I clarified that I had said I would let her know if there was space, which I never did because she showed up unannounced on Saturday. I explained that her lack of respect for our agreement and her entitled attitude had made me reconsider my offer. She became upset, insisting that she needed to get rid of the mattresses. I acknowledged her difficult situation, but explained that it didn't give her the right to demand use of something I had paid for. I suggested other options like contacting the local waste management company or hiring a junk removal service. She became angry and threatened to tell all the neighbors about how selfish I was. I calmly responded that she was free to do so and suggested that the neighbors might be interested to hear about how she tried to take advantage of someone's kindness and then got upset when there were consequences for that. In the end, the house renovations were completed successfully and the dumpster was picked up on Tuesday as scheduled. And while I still believe in being kind and helpful to others, I also realize that it's okay to say no when someone crosses the line. I'm just a high school kid trying to earn some extra cash. You know, my parents always taught me the value of hard work, so when I turned 16, I decided to get a job at the local grocery store. It's not glamorous, but it helps me save up for college and gives me some spending money. Anyway, it was a pretty average Saturday afternoon. The store was busy, but nothing we couldn't handle. I was at the checkout bagging groceries for customers. It's not a difficult job, but you've got to be quick and careful. Some people can be really picky about how their stuff is packed. So there I was, minding my own business, when this lady comes through my line. She looked like your typical suburban mom. Fancy handbag, perfectly styled hair, and a severely entitled attitude. As I started bagging her groceries, I could feel her eyes on me. It was like she was just waiting for me to make a mistake. I tried to ignore it and focus on my job. The woman rudely questioned if I was new, criticizing my bagging technique. I politely asked her if she had a specific way she wanted her groceries bagged. She responded with frustration, giving me detailed instructions about separating cans and not putting bread at the bottom. I nodded and started rearranging the items. I could feel my face getting hot with embarrassment. The customers behind her were starting to look impatient. I apologized for the inconvenience and assured her I would fix it right away. She then insulted me, calling me an incompetent child. I bit my tongue, trying not to let her words get to me. I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I didn't want to cause a scene. I continued bagging her groceries, being extra careful to follow her instructions. Just as I thought I was done, she pointed out the eggs, demanding they be in their own bag and accusing me of trying to break them. Before I could even respond, she reached over the counter and grabbed the egg carton from my hands. In her haste, she knocked over a display of candy bars next to the register. They scattered all over the floor. I immediately offered to clean up the mess. She agreed but blamed me for the incident. I knelt down to start picking up the candy bars, my cheeks burning with humiliation. That's when it happened. As I reached for a chocolate bar, I felt a sharp pain across my face. It took me a second to realize what had happened. She had slapped me. The woman then berated me, saying the slap was for being useless and that it would teach me to do my job properly. I was stunned. My ears were ringing and I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. I couldn't believe this woman had just hit me over some groceries. I stood up, ready to call for my manager, when I heard another voice behind me. A tall, muscular woman in plain clothes intervened, questioning the first woman's actions. The first woman tried to dismiss her, saying it wasn't her business and that I needed to learn how to do my job. The second woman then revealed she was an off-duty police officer and that she had witnessed the assault on a minor. The first woman became visibly scared and started stammering, trying to come up with excuses. The officer informed the woman that she was under arrest for assault. She then turned to me with a softer expression, asking if I was all right or needed medical attention. I shook my head, still in shock, and told her I was okay but shaken up. The officer instructed me to come to the station later to give a statement and suggested I take a break in the back. I watched as she handcuffed the first woman, who was now crying and begging for forgiveness. My manager had come over by this point and was profusely apologizing to me. The manager apologized for the incident, gave me the rest of the day off with pay, and mentioned we'd need to fill out an incident report when I felt up to it. As I walked to the break room, I could hear the arrested woman complaining about how this would ruin her reputation and how she didn't mean to do it. But all I could think about was how grateful I was that the off-duty officer had been there. Later at the police station, I found out that the officer was actually there to pick up some snacks for her son's little league game. She told me that she had been watching the whole interaction and was about to step in even before the woman hit me. The officer complimented my composure during the incident. I explained that I just didn't want to make things worse. She encouraged me to be proud of myself and assured me that the woman would face what was coming to her. As it turned out, the arrested woman had a history of similar incidents at other stores in the area. My case was the final straw. She ended up facing serious charges for it. I'll never forget that off-duty officer and how she came to my rescue that day. It's made me think about maybe becoming a police officer myself someday. Who knows? Maybe I'll be the one stepping in to help someone else in need. I've always been a careful person, especially when it comes to my health. I work as a landscaper, which means I'm constantly around plants, dirt, and all sorts of debris. It's a job I love, but it comes with its risks. That's why I always wear protective gear, including safety glasses. But sometimes, even the best precautions aren't enough. It was a typical Wednesday afternoon and I was trimming some overgrown bushes in a client's backyard. I had my safety glasses on as usual, but somehow a tiny burr managed to get past them and into my eye. The pain was instant and excruciating. I tried flushing it out with water, but nothing helped. My co-worker drove me to the nearest urgent care clinic, but they took one look and said I needed to go to the emergency room. By the time we got to the hospital, my eye was swollen and watering non-stop. The pain was so bad I could barely think straight. I stumbled into the emergency room, clutching my eye and praying for relief. When I approached the nurse, she asked about my problem. I explained that something was stuck in my eye and that the urgent care had sent me to the emergency room. I emphasized how much pain I was in. The nurse quickly responded saying she would get me checked in right away. They rushed me through triage, and before I knew it, a doctor was examining my eye. He seemed concerned but confident. The doctor informed me that he could see the burr lodged deep in my eye. He assured me that they would remove it and asked me to stay still. The next few minutes were a blur of eye drops, dyes, and various instruments poking at my eye. Finally, I felt a sharp tug, and then relief. The doctor then told me that they had successfully removed the burr. He explained that my eye might be sore for a few days, but reassured me that there shouldn't be any permanent damage. I was so grateful. The pain was already subsiding, and I could see clearly again. I thanked the doctor profusely and left the hospital feeling like I'd dodged a bullet. Little did I know the real pain was yet to come. A few weeks later, I received a bill in the mail. I opened it, expecting maybe a couple $100 for the emergency room visit. Instead, I nearly fainted when I saw the total, $3,100. I called the billing department, expressing my disbelief at the high cost. I explained that I had insurance and that their hospital was in-network. The billing representative apologized and explained that while the hospital was in-network, the doctor who treated me was an independent contractor and out-of-network. I protested, pointing out that it was an emergency and I didn't have a choice of doctors. The representative acknowledged my concern but said that it was their policy and the full amount was due. I was furious. How could they charge so much for a 15-minute procedure? And how was I supposed to know the doctor wasn't in network during an emergency? I tried negotiating, pleading, even threatening to complain to the medical board. Nothing worked. They wouldn't budge on the price. That's when I hatched my plan. I called back, this time with a different approach. In this call, I explained to the billing representative that I couldn't afford to pay the full amount at once and asked about setting up a payment plan. The representative agreed and asked how much I could afford per month. I proposed $10 per month. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. The billing representative pointed out that at that rate, it would take over 25 years to pay off the bill. I said that it was all I could afford and gave them the choice to accept it or not. To my surprise, they agreed. And so began my tiny act of rebellion. Every month, like clockwork, I pay my $10. I know they can't charge me interest, can't report me to collections as long as I'm paying, and it won't affect my credit score. It's been over 2 years now, and I've paid a grand total of $260 on that $3,100 bill. Every month, I get a new bill in the mail, and every month it goes straight into my recycling bin. I've set up autopay so I don't even have to think about it anymore. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I think about how it'll take them almost 24 more years to get their money. I think about all the postage they're wasting sending me those useless bills. And I smile because, in my own small way, I'm sticking it to a system that tried to take advantage of me when I was most vulnerable. My sister and I have always been close, but our paths diverged as adults. I focused on my career and family, while she struggled with stability. When my daughter was born with a rare condition affecting her speech and movement, it was challenging, but my wife and I were determined to give her the best life possible. Most of our family offered support, except my sister. She seemed uncomfortable around my daughter, making excuses not to visit and barely interacting when she did. Over the years, her behavior worsened. She'd make insensitive comments about the difficulties of raising a child with special needs. I confront her, but she'd dismiss it as a joke or claim I was being oversensitive. Despite this, when she called crying about her divorce, I offered to let her stay with us. My wife wasn't thrilled but understood my desire to help. Everything came to a head during a family dinner. As my daughter proudly demonstrated her new communication device, my sister made a cruel comment about not having to deal with my daughter's voice when she moved in. I confronted her later, reminding her of her past hurtful comments. When she tried to brush it off, I told her she could no longer stay with us. She was shocked, accusing me of putting my child before family. I responded that my daughter was my family and her well-being came first. The next day, I was bombarded with messages from family members saying I was being too harsh. They made excuses for her behavior, insisting she didn't mean it. My mother even called, begging me to reconsider and reminding me that my sister needed us now more than ever. I stood my ground, explaining that while I understood my sister was going through a tough time, it didn't give her the right to hurt my daughter. I admitted I didn't know where she'd go but maintained it couldn't be with us. When my mother asked about what was best for my sister, I explained that I'd spent years accommodating her behavior, but it was time she took responsibility for herself. That evening, watching my daughter practice with her communication device, I knew I'd made the right choice. My sister might be blood, but my daughter is my heart. I'll always choose to protect her, no matter what anyone else thinks. In the end, I realized that being a good brother doesn't mean tolerating hurtful behavior. Sometimes being a good parent means making difficult decisions to protect your child, even if it means going against family expectations. My daughter's well-being will always be my priority, and I'm at peace with my decision to stand up for her. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.